If you are a federal contractor, a prime, a sub, a small business, a large business, an 8A, SDVOSB, WOSB, anything related to federal contracting, one thing all felt: 2025 hit different. This wasn't a year of incremental tweaks. The procurement landscape was restructured from the ground up, and the regulatory ground is still shifting as we move into 2026. This video is your checklist. Bookmark it, share it with your compliance team. Let's get into it. Starting January 20th, 2025, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, was established by executive order with one directive: find waste and cut it. What followed was an unprecedented wave of terminations for convenience, stop work orders, and contract modifications across DoD, GSA, HHS, USAD, USDA, and more. No vehicle was shielded. GSA schedules, SOUP 5, and OSS all saw deobligations. Three things every contractor must understand. First, a termination for convenience is not a reflection of your performance. The government has the unilateral right to end a contract at any time, and DOGE has used this at scale. Second, you have rights. You're entitled to recover allowable costs incurred plus a reasonable profit on work performed. You can submit a termination settlement proposal. If the contracting officer does not respond within 60 days, you can treat it as a deemed denial and file a claim under the Contract Disputes Act. Third, if you receive a defective termination notice, document it immediately in writing to the contracting officer. It preserves your legal options. Review every active contract for your termination clauses, specifically the applicable FAR 52.249 series. Know your settlement proposal deadlines, cost accounting obligations, and subcontractor flow-down responsibilities before a notice arrives.
On January 20th and 21st, 2025, the President signed two executive orders: Executive Order 14151 and Executive Order 14173, that fundamentally changed the compliance obligations of every federal contractor. So here is what happened. Executive Order 11246, the affirmative action order that has been governing federal contractors since 1965, was revoked. The OFCCP was directed to cease all the enforcement under that order. Executive Order 14173 requires a certification in every federal contract that you do not operate DEI programs that violate federal anti-discrimination laws. This certification is required on new awards and modifications going forward. Critically, the order explicitly makes the certification material under the False Claims Act, meaning a false or a reckless certification exposes you to treble damages, per claim civil penalties, and whistleblower suits all also on the table. The DOJ's Civil Rights Fraud Initiative is actively issuing civil investigative demands to contractors seeking information about their DEI practices.
What this means in practice: 1. Audit your internal DEI-related programs, training, and policies for race or sex-based preferences in hiring, promotion, or procurement is a risk area. 2. Do not assume existing contracts are safe. Agencies may incorporate the certification upon renewal or modification. 3. Your anti-discrimination obligations under Title VII, VEVRAA, and Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act remain intact. 4. Litigation is active and evolving. Multiple court challenges are pending, but the orders have largely withstood legal pressure to date.
In April 2025, Executive Order 14275 directed the FAR Council to strip the federal acquisition regulations down to only what is required by the statute. The White House itself has called it the most significant reform in FAR's 41-year history. Over 500 requirements have already been eliminated, with more than 1,000 expected to be removed by the completion. Here is where things stand. Phase 1 is underway via class deviations. Department of Defense issued 31 DFAR class deviations in December 2025 and 6 more in January 2026, all effective from February 1st, 2026. Phase 2 involves formal notice and comment rulemaking to make these changes permanent. Several non-statutory contract clauses have been eliminated, including requirements for commercial contractors to disclose the names and compensation of their 5 highest paid executives. Sustainability, environmental justice, and certain labor-related clauses beyond statutory requirements have been removed or modified. FAR Parts 4, 8, 12, 38, 40, and 51 have been revised. 1. Monitor acquisition.gov. 2. If you are a DoD contractor, review all 31 plus DFAR class deviations now active as of February 1st, 2026. 3. If the FAR part governing your contract area has been revised, review your proposal templates and compliance matrices to reflect current clause versions.
Separate from the FAR overhaul, the FAR Council issued a final rule in August 2025, adjusting thresholds for inflation under 41 USC 1908. These took effect October 1st, 2025 and apply to all new solicitations and contracts issued on or after that date. Here are the numbers you need to know. Micro purchase threshold increased from $10,000 to $15,000. Simplified acquisition threshold, that is SAT, increased from $250,000 to $350,000. Simplified procedures for commercial products and services, FAR 13.500A, ceiling increased from $7.5 million to $9 million. Cost or price data threshold, FAR 15.4034, contracts after July 1st, 2018, increased from $2 million to $2.5 million. Subcontracting plan threshold, FAR 19.702, increased from $750,000 to $900,000. Construction threshold increased from $1.5 million to $2 million.
Why this matters for you? Higher thresholds mean fewer compliance burdens trigger at a lower dollar values. Small businesses in particular may see relief, and the SAT increase expands the range of procurements where the streamlined procedures apply, which can reduce both bid prep requirements and post-award obligations. If you are a large business prime, the higher subcontracting plan threshold means you won't be required to submit small business subcontracting plans on contracts below $900,000 and up from previous $750,000. Update your internal compliance checklists, bid no bid thresholds, and proposal templates now.
Effective January 17, 2025, FAR 32.21928, that's Post Award Small Business Program Representation, was amended. The core change: contractors must now re-represent their size and socio-economic status within 30 days of merger, acquisition, or novation agreement, even if the contract itself is not directly affected. This is critical for any contractor that has undergone a corporate restructuring, been acquired, or merged with another entity. Failure to re-represent in the required time frame can affect your ability to continue performing on set-aside contracts and on the accuracy of federal small business award credit flowing to your agency customer. One important carve-out: orders placed under federal supply schedules are exempt from these re-representation requirements. If you have had any M&A activity since January 17, 2025, verify your re-representation was filed on time. If you are approaching a transaction, build this 30-day obligation into your integration planning now. On September 10, 2025, the DoD published the final DFARS rule implementing the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program CMMC 2.0. It became effective November 10, 2025. Any DoD contractor or subcontractor whose systems process, store, or transmit FCI or CUI. COTS-only contracts are exempt. Starting November 10, 2025, contracting officers began incorporating the revised DFARS Clause 252.204/7021 into new solicitations, tying award eligibility to a contractor's verified CMMC status.
Three-level structure. Level 1 requires annual self-assessment, 17 practices aligned to FAR 52, 204, 21. Level 2 requires either self-assessment or a third-party C3PAO assessment, 110 practices aligned to NIST SP 800-171. Level 3 requires government-led assessment, 24 additional practices aligned to NIST SP 800-172.
CMMC requirements are being phased in over 3 years. Full mandatory compliance across all applicable contracts is required by November 10, 2028. But solicitations are already incorporating CMMC requirements right now. Your CMMC assessment scores and affirmations of continuous compliance must be recorded in the Supplier Performance Risk System. Prime contractors must ensure subcontractors handling FCI or CUI also maintain the appropriate CMMC level. You cannot verify using SPRS directly for subs, but you are responsible for requiring and confirming compliance before sharing covered information. If you cannot achieve full certification immediately, you may qualify for conditional CMMC status valid for up to 180 days while closing out items in an approved plan of action and milestones. Conduct a gap analysis. Map every system touching FCI or CUI. Confirm your SPRS entries are current and accurate. If level 2 or 3 is required for your target contracts, begin your C3PAO engagement now. Assessment capacity is tightening. Domestic content requirements are tightening and non-compliance now carries explicit False Claims Act risk.
Here's where things stand. Buy American Act BAA. The domestic content threshold for critical items is currently at 65% through 2028, with further increases anticipated in 2029. The applicable clauses are FAR 52, 2251 for civilian supply contracts and DFARS 252, 225, 7000 for DoD. Trade Agreements Act TAA. The TAA prohibits procurement from products from non-designated countries including China, Russia, and India for contracts above 183,000. Products must be wholly produced in or substantially transformed in the US or a TAA designated country. Note, merely assembly of imported components in a designated country does not meet the substantial transformation test. Build America, Buy America Act BABA. For contractors on federally funded infrastructure projects, the FHWA terminated its long-standing general applicability waiver for manufactured products effective January 14, 2025. Full BABA domestic content standards will apply to projects obligated after October 1, 2026. Prime recipients must follow this requirement down to all sub-awards and collect supplier certifications at every tier.
If you certify TAA or BAA compliance on a product that contains foreign content from a non-designated country, that certification becomes the basis of a false claim. Whistleblowers with the inside knowledge of your supply chain are the most common source of key TAM actions in this space. Conduct a supply chain audit. Map all components to country of origin, including sub-tier parts. Update supply agreements to require advance notice of manufacturing location change and grant your audit rights. Do not rely on country of origin certifications you haven't independently verified.
The fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act was signed into law on December 18, 2025. Several provisions directly affect contractor compliance and business strategy. The threshold for mandatory CAS applicability at the contract level was raised from $2.5 million to $35 million. The threshold for full CAS coverage was raised from $50 million to $100 million. Portions of contracts for commercial products, firm fixed price claims, or items with prices set by law are now exempt even if overall contract exceeds the threshold. If you have been managing contracts specifically to stay under prior cash thresholds, you now have significantly more room. The threshold for mandatory submission of certified cost or pricing data under the Truthful Cost or Pricing Data Act, previously TINA, was raised from $2.5 million to $10 million for DoD contracts. This substantially reduces the number of negotiations where you will need to submit and certify detailed cost data, and with it, reduces your exposure to defective pricing claims. Companies without a full cash-covered DoD contract in the past year are now explicitly exempt from several DFARS business systems clauses, including Accounting System Administration, EVMS, Cost Estimating System Requirements, Material Management, and Accounting System. This is a significant on-ramp reduction for commercial companies entering the defense market. The NDAA prohibits DoD contractors from using DeepSeek or Highflyer and their affiliates in the contract performance. If you use any of AI tooling in your delivery operations, verify your tools now. Limited waivers exist only for research, national security analysis, and mission critical functions. The DOJ recovered over $2.9 billion under the False Claims Act in the fiscal year 2024, and enforcement pressure on contractors intensified significantly in 2025. Three intersecting risk areas demand your attention. 1. DI certification risk. Executive Order 14173 ties DI compliance certification to FCA materiality. Any knowingly false certification or one made with deliberate ignorance of its accuracy is actionable. The Civil Rights Fraud Initiative is actively investigating. 2. Termination settlement risk. With the volume of DOJ-driven termination settlements now flowing through contracting officers, the DOJ has flagged termination settlement proposal as a heightened FCA risk area. Inaccurate cost submissions, inflated proposals, or improperly claimed costs in a termination context are being scrutinized. Document your incurred costs and unallowable cost exclusions meticulously. 3. Domestic content certification risk. False certifications of BAA, TAA, or BABA compliance, intentional or reckless, trigger FCA liability, including treble damages and per claim civil penalties. Review every certification your company makes at proposal submissions, at award, and during contract performance. Certifications are not just administrative checkboxes, they are legal representations. A culture of compliance starts with understanding what you are signing.
Let's recap your checklist. 1. Understand your termination rights and have a response protocol ready for DOJ-era stop work and termination for convenience notices.
2. Audit and adjust your DEI programs in line with Executive Order 14173. Ensure your contract certifications are accurate. Understand your FCA exposure.
3. Monitor the revolutionary FAR overhaul in real time. Review DFARS deviations active as of February 1, 2026 if you are a DoD contractor.
4. Update your compliance thresholds. SAT is $350K, MPT is $15K, subcontracting plan threshold is $900K. These were effective from October 1, 2025.
5. If you have had an M&A event since January 17, 2025, confirm your re-representation was filed within 30 days.
6. If you are in the DoD space, know your CMMC level. Confirm your SPRS entries and verify your subcontractors' compliance before sharing FCI or CUI.
7. Audit your supply chain for BAA, TAA, and BABA compliance. Domestic content is a False Claims Act issue now.
8. Know the FY 2026 NDAA changes to CAS, TINA, and AI tool restrictions if you are a defense contractor.
9. Treat every certification as a legal representation. FCA enforcement is at record levels. Your compliance program is not optional.
Federal contracting in 2025 and 2026 is not the same environment it was 2 years ago. The rules have changed, the enforcement posture has shifted, and the cost of getting it wrong is higher than ever.
Use this checklist, revise it, and make sure your legal and compliance teams are looped in on every item that we have covered. We'll keep this updated as the FAR overhaul progresses and new guidelines drops. Stay sharp, updated, and focused with CyberX Gov Solutions.